It was pecan. Madison's favorite. Homemade, supposedly. I was mid-sentence, saying something about the driveway needing salt, when she spun from the kitchen, smiled too wide, and slammed the pie into my face like we were all in on some joke. The plate clanged against my cheekbone. Cold filling hit my eyes, and the crust cracked against my nose. I staggered back and slipped, my heel catching on the rug, fell sideways. My back slammed against the edge of the buffet cabinet, hard enough to send a sharp crack up my spine. A serving spoon clattered to the floor next to me. I didn't hear laughter. I heard the absence of it. The silence people make when they don't want to be involved. Then Andrew, my son, chuckled. "Geez, Mads, you really went for it." I lay there blinking at the ceiling. The pie plate rolled away from me, empty now. My left cheek was tingling, then cold, then nothing. I reached up and touched the side of my face. "Dad," Madison said, her voice sing-song. "Relax, it's just pie." My fingers came away wet. "Dickie." I tried to sit up, but something seized in my lower back. A red haze flickered in the corners of my vision. "Tom," someone muttered. Sarah Miller, maybe, the neighbor. "He's not getting up." Madison laughed. "Oh, come on. You're not 80. Don't be dramatic." The rest of them went back to their seats. Madison stepped over my arm like I was furniture. I stayed on the floor for a while. The wood was cool against my shoulder blade. I could hear forks tapping plates, low conversations returning. Andrew didn't come over to help me up. Not even a glance. Eventually, I forced myself upright. The pie was everywhere. Crumbs in my collar, syrup in my ear. I stood there in front of them all, the hem of my shirt sticking to my ribs. Madison caught my eye and did a slow blink. That smug, private little blink I'd seen before. I went to the half-bath, locked the door, and cleaned myself up with paper towels. Cold water. Brown soap that smelled like citrus. Took longer than I expected. My hands weren't as steady as they used to be. When I looked in the mirror, the left side of my face sagged just slightly. Subtle but off. I tried to smile. One side moved. The other didn't. I stood there a long time watching myself in the mirror. It was the kind of numbness that isn't just physical. Like someone had unplugged something deeper. When I came out, the dinner had resumed without me. My plate was gone. My chair pushed in. Someone had wiped the floor where I'd fallen. I wasn't part of the picture anymore. "Everything okay?" Andrew said, not looking at me. He was filling a glass of wine for Madison. "Fine," I said. The rest of the night passed like a strange dream. They moved around me but not with me. I held an ice pack to my jaw while they laughed at Madison's stories. Sarah Miller avoided my eyes. She'd seen what happened. She was the only one who had even half stood from her chair. Madison didn't apologize. Not once. When I got up to leave, Andrew followed me to the door. "You sure you're okay?" he asked, still avoiding eye contact. I said yes, because I didn't have the words for what I was really feeling. He hugged me one-armed, like an afterthought. "You know Madison, always pushing the envelope." I nodded, walked to my truck. The night air felt sharper than it should have. I sat in the cab for 10 minutes before I turned the key. That night, the pain got worse. My back was tight, then stiff, then something worse. I tried to lie flat but couldn't. Breathing hurt on one side, and my face. My whole cheek, ear, part of my neck had gone completely numb. When I tried to speak aloud, just to test things, I heard a slur in my own voice. I drove myself to urgent care the next morning. The nurse behind the counter looked up when she saw me walk in and went quiet mid-sentence. They sent me to imaging almost immediately. Dr. Harris was a quiet man. Never liked small talk. I'd seen him once before for a hand injury a couple years back. Reliable. Measured. This time, after the scans, he stepped back into the exam room with his eyes already different. Guarded. "Tom," he said, "we're calling an ambulance. Right now." I sat up straighter. "What for?" He didn't answer directly, just turned and spoke through the door to the nurse. "Get them on the line. I want them here in 10 minutes. Priority transfer." He looked back at me. "You have a significant fracture. he said. And there's a mass near your carotid we didn't expect. Could be pressure from the trauma, or it could be something else. But it's not safe for you to walk out of here. A mass. I felt the floor tilt under me, though I was sitting down. Did the fall cause it? He didn't answer. They strapped me to a stretcher. I remember the ceiling tiles passing above me. Bright lights. A woman asking about my insurance card. I handed it over with a hand that barely worked. Later that day, they wheeled me in for further scans. That's when the nurse leaned in gently while adjusting my fore. "What happened at that dinner, Mr. Quinn?" she asked. I didn't answer, because I just realized something that had been circling the edges of my thoughts since the pie hit my face. It wasn't a joke. It never had been. The social worker was the first. Young, polite, with a notepad she barely used. Said her name was Karen. She stood at the foot of the hospital bed like she was observing a man already half removed from his own life. "Mr. Quinn," she said, "can you tell me again how you were injured?" "I slipped," I said, "backed into a cabinet." She nodded slowly. "And what caused the fall?" I hesitated. "A pie." Her pen finally moved. The investigator came later. He didn't introduce himself at first. Just pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down like we'd known each other a long time. "I'm with Adult Protective Services," he said after a minute. "We received a call from the hospital. It's standard when a report involves an elder injury with possible signs of neglect or abuse." "Elder," I said. The word felt sour in my mouth. He didn't blink. "There's no shame in it. We investigate facts. That's all." Facts. The bruises on my back. The partial facial paralysis. The neurological inflammation from what the neurologist now thought was a minor stroke, likely triggered by the blunt force trauma. The mass they'd found in the scan. Not a tumor, but swelling. Trauma-induced. All facts. But what they didn't see was the years. Not just this one fall. Not just one cruel joke from a daughter-in-law who always laughed a little too loud when I spoke. Who sighed when I stood too slow. Who offered to Google it whenever I tried to explain something. Who corrected me in front of my grandchildren like it was her full-time job. Madison had been rewriting the roles in that house since the day she moved in. Slowly, casually, like erosion. "You probably didn't notice," the investigator said. "But that buffet you fell against? There's an old indent along the bottom left. It lines up exactly with the injury to your lower ribs. It's been hit hard before. More than once." I didn't respond, because I had noticed. A long time ago, after Andrew tripped on the rug and banged his side. Back when we laughed about clumsy feet and quick fixes. Only now I wasn't sure that's how it happened. Sarah Miller came to see me on the third day. She brought a small tin of muffins wrapped in paper towel. She always had good manners. She sat down and didn't speak right away. Just looked at me, at the bruises, at the way I held myself stiff. "I saw her do it," she said quietly. "The pie thing." "I know." "She aimed," Sarah added. "It wasn't a stumble. It wasn't spontaneous. She lined it up like she wanted maximum effect. You saw that, right?" I didn't answer. "I've watched her for years," Sarah went on. "Madison, the little barbs. The way she makes fun of your hearing, even though you hear fine. The way she tells the kids not to ask you things because Grandpa gets confused. The way she cuts you off mid-sentence and changes the subject like you're a guest at your own table." I looked out the window. It was raining. "She's been doing this for a long time, Tom. You just didn't want to see it." There was a long silence. I finally said, "Andrew laughed." Sarah nodded. "Yeah, he did. He used to stand up for me," I said. "When he was younger." She didn't reply to that. Some things didn't need confirming. Later that week, the hospital discharged me under supervision. I was given a walker, a packet of exercises, and a warning. No lifting, no driving, no stairs without someone nearby. A nurse named Carla helped me into the cab. She touched my elbow gently, like she was trying to say something more without saying it. I went back to Andrew's house first. I needed to get my things. Madison answered the door. Her arms were crossed. "You shouldn't be here," she said flatly. I'm here for my things. She didn't move, didn't open the door any wider. Behind her, Andrew stood a little to the left, pale. His eyes were rimmed red. He looked down when I caught his gaze. Andrew, I said, I just need my bag, my tools, the laptop. He didn't speak, just stood there like a piece of furniture she'd forgotten to move. I'm not here to start anything, I said. I just want what's mine. Madison stepped forward and pulled the door almost shut behind her. She stood inches away now. Her voice dropped. You talk to the police again, she said. And you'll never see your grandkids. My jaw tightened. That a threat? It's a fact, she said. You stir things up, I protect my kids. You make this ugly, I make it simple. No contact. Ever. She smiled then. A closed-lip smile like a zipper being drawn across her face. Andrew, I said, raising my voice. He flinched. His hands twitched at his sides. That's when I saw the marks. Faint but there, like someone had gripped both wrists too hard. Finger-width bruises. My son looked like a man half-drowned. Not drowning past that. Floating under the surface, eyes wide open, waiting for the water to win. I'm staying at Sarah Miller's for now, I said, not breaking eye contact with Madison. She offered her guest room. I'll come by tomorrow for the rest. She shrugged. I'll leave it on the porch. I nodded. Fine. I turned and walked away. I didn't wait for goodbye. Back at Sarah's, I sat in the guest room surrounded by things I hadn't touched in years. A lamp with a cracked base. A painting I vaguely remembered from Linda's cousin's basement. The kind of room people keep for in-laws and emergencies. Sarah made tea. Set it down beside me. She didn't speak. I told her what Madison said. She didn't seem surprised. She's bluffing, Sarah said. If she really wanted to cut you off, she'd have done it already. She wants control. That's all. If she scares you into silence, she wins. I'm not afraid of her. No, she said. You're afraid of losing them. I didn't answer. That night I called a lawyer. Her name was Elise Romero. Clean voice. Sharp mind. She didn't ask for drama or long stories. I gave her the facts. She asked for copies of my financial statements. She called back 3 days later. Mr. Quinn, she said. There are 2 bank loans in your name you never applied for. Both opened in the last 2 years. 1 credit card. 1 revolving line of credit. All active. I said nothing. Signatures were forged, she added. We've confirmed with handwriting analysis. What else? A Lexus was purchased last winter in your name. You don't drive a Lexus, do you? No. I didn't think so. She paused. We're escalating this fraud, and possibly elder abuse. What about my son? That depends on what he knew. I thanked her, hung up, and waited for the other shoe to drop. Came sooner than I expected. Andrew showed up at Sarah's house one night after dark. Alone. He didn't knock. Just stood there on the porch until I opened the door. His eyes were red again, his face hollow. Can I come in? He asked. I nodded. He sat at the table and didn't touch the tea Sarah poured. After a while he said, It wasn't just the pie. You know that, right? I didn't speak. She's been planning this, he said. For years. Andrew didn't look like my son when he told me the truth. His shoulders were drawn tight. His hands wouldn't stop trembling. He kept wiping them on his jeans like he was trying to dry sweat that wasn't there. We sat at Sarah Miller's kitchen table. She'd gone upstairs to give us space. The house was quiet in a way that made every breath sound heavier than it should have been. She made me sign things, he said. Years ago. Before the kids were born. His voice wasn't steady. Came in fragments. Small pieces. At a party, he said. One of her work events. She kept handing me drinks. Wouldn't let me put the glass down. I thought she just wanted me to loosen up around her coworkers. He shook his head. I was stupid. I didn't interrupt. I let him talk. She brought me to a back room. A study, I think. Papers on the desk. Clipboard. She sat me down and said they were disclosures the company needed for the open bar. Liability stuff. That's what she called it. Liability stuff. He rubbed his face with both hands. She filmed me, Dad. Not obviously. Her phone was propped on a shelf. I didn't know. She told me to sign. And I did. I didn't even look at the forms. I was too drunk to focus. He looked up at me then. His eyes were raw. She threatened to release the video if I didn't cooperate. Said it would ruin my job. Said it would look like I signed financial agreements while intoxicated. She said it would tank my license. She said no one would hire an engineer who didn't read what he signed. I felt something heavy settle in my chest. I kept my voice calm. What did she make you sign, Andrew? He swallowed. Hard. Loans in your name. His eyes dropped to the table. Credit cards. Another breath. A power of attorney. My hands tightened on the edge of the chair, but I didn't move. He kept talking. She told me you'd be fine, that you had savings you weren't using, that you wouldn't even notice, that it was temporary. She said it was for the good of our family, Dad. She always says that. For the good of the family. I forced the words out slowly. And the Lexus? He nodded. She said it was an investment, that we needed to look successful to get her parents' approval. She said once your assets were settled, she'd make sure everything was squared up. She always says that too. Squared up. He finally looked at me. Really looked. But I didn't know about the house papers, or the retirement accounts, or the insurance policy she tried to access. I swear, Dad, I didn't know. She keeps everything on her computer. Password. Encrypted. She changes the locks on the filing cabinet. He leaned forward and lowered his voice. And she checks my emails. My phone. My browser history. She says it's because I forget things. But, Dad, she deletes messages before I see them. I didn't know Sarah invited us for Christmas Eve. I didn't know you called after the hospital. I didn't know anything. I let out a slow breath. The bruises on your wrists. He flinched. Yeah, he whispered. That. He stopped, closed his eyes, started again. It's not like she hits me. Not exactly. She just grabs too hard sometimes. Or blocks the doorway when we argue. Or takes my keys. Or stands close enough that I can't move without pushing her. Then she cries and tells me I'm scaring her. She always cries afterward. He stared at the table as if waiting for it to speak. Dad. She said you were getting confused. That you were unsafe around the kids. That you were forgetting things. That you had early dementia. His jaw tightened. I didn't believe her at first, but she kept bringing it up. Every month. Then every week. Then every day. I stayed still. If I moved, I wasn't sure what would come out of me. She said you needed supervision. That we should limit your time with the kids until we got you tested. His voice cracked. I never wanted to believe that, but she wore me down. He covered his face again. Shoulders caved. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I didn't touch him. Not yet. I needed the truth first. What happened that night? I asked. The night of the pie. He winced. She was angry you didn't compliment her cooking. She said you were judging her. She said you were being passive-aggressive by not eating fast enough. She said you were playing the victim again. I waited. She told me before dinner she was going to put you in your place. I thought she meant verbally. Comment. A joke. Something small. He shook his head hard. I didn't know she'd do that. I didn't know she'd actually hit you. But you laughed. His voice went small. I know. We sat in silence for a long time. When he finally looked up again, something had shifted in him. A door cracked open somewhere behind his eyes. There's more, he said quietly. It's about Mom. I felt my stomach tighten. Mom didn't like Madison, he whispered. Not at first. Not at the end. She tried to talk to me. I brushed her off. I thought she was being overprotective. But she left something for you. I didn't know about it until last week. I leaned forward. Left what? A folder, he said. With documents. Screenshots. Notes. Copies of Madison's old employment records. Stuff from Nevada. Arizona. Charges that were dropped. Investigations that stopped halfway because the victims never pressed on it. His hands shook again. I found it in the garage, hidden above the rafters. Mom labeled it, for Tom, if needed. The room went still. She knew, I said. Andrew nodded. She knew something was wrong. She knew Madison wasn't who she said she was. I stared at the steam rising from the untouched tea. Where's the folder now? I asked. I brought it, he said, reaching for his jacket. It's all here. Everything she found. Everything she tried to warn me about. He slid the manila folder across the table. It was thick, overstuffed, edges worn, as if my wife had handled it many times before she got too sick to continue. And Dad? Andrew swallowed. There's something else. Something about Madison's mother. I waited. Deborah Reed, he said. Her real name isn't Deborah. She's been involved in elder financial schemes before. 2 states. 3 investigations. Different aliases. Same patterns. He pushed the folder toward me again. Mom connected all of it. She just didn't get the chance to finish. The weight of the folder felt like a cinder block. So what now? I asked. Andrew's voice steadied for the first time that night. We go to the police, he said. We go to your lawyer. And we end this. I can't protect her anymore, Dad. I can't pretend this is normal. I nodded once. The truth had finally surfaced. And it was darker than I'd let myself imagine. Andrew exhaled shakily. I think she's planning something else, he whispered. Something bigger. Outside, a car door slammed. Not close, somewhere on the street. But the sound made both of us look toward the window. Andrew leaned in. Dad, he said softly. She's not done. You have to understand that. She's never done. I looked at the folder, then at my son, and I felt something settle inside me. A decision forming. Clean. Sharp. I've been a builder all my life. A man who repaired what was broken. A man who reinforced structures that were failing. This time I'd have to tear something down. I wasn't there to see it, but I heard from Elise later that day. The FBI, not local police. Quiet, controlled, efficient. No sirens. No cuffs in the driveway. Just 2 black SUVs. A knock at the door. And the end of the story Madison had been writing for years. Deborah Reed, if that was even her real name, was taken in an hour later, 15 miles north, in a gated condo she hadn't listed on any of her financial disclosures. She tried to claim mistaken identity. Claimed elder abuse was impossible because she wasn't anyone's caretaker. The agents showed her the forged documents, the video clips, the bank trail. She stopped talking after that. It was mid-March by then. Snow still clung to the curbs in Portland, dirty and dense. I stood in Sarah Miller's kitchen when the news came through. Just stood there staring at the tile, holding a coffee I hadn't touched. She's in custody, Elise said over the speakerphone. No bail for now. Federal charges. Mail fraud, wire fraud, elder exploitation, criminal conspiracy. Possible identity theft and insurance fraud depending on how the filings land. I nodded. And Deborah? Same. She's going to be harder to crack, knows how to manipulate process. But they've got her. This time she's not walking away. Andrew was in the other room with the kids. He'd gotten temporary custody while the investigation moved forward. Madison's parents filed motions to intervene, but the judge shut it down. Their fingerprints were on too many documents, too many calls, too many accidental fund transfers into accounts tied to shell companies in Phoenix and Henderson. I moved out of Sarah's guest room 2 weeks later. Found a little house in Colorado. Quiet town near Gunnison. Cold but clean. 1 grocery store, a hardware shop, and a cafe that still writes your order down on paper. My kind of place. I sold my old house in Portland. The sale closed fast, cash buyer, no inspections. Madison's name had never touched the deed. She tried once to get power of attorney while I was recovering in the hospital. Told the nurses I was losing time. But the neurologist backed me. Cognitive tests cleared me. She never got a signature. That saved everything. Andrew stayed in Oregon for a while, got therapy, switched jobs, took the kids out of the school Madison picked and enrolled them somewhere smaller. Local. He cut ties with most of her family, reached out to his own again. Slowly. He calls every Sunday now, not out of guilt, just rhythm. It's a small thing, but it lands deeper than he knows. The FBI asked me to testify. I said yes. In the courtroom, Madison looked straight ahead the whole time. Wore a dark blouse, no makeup. Played the misunderstood wife. I sat across from her. I didn't speak to her. Didn't flinch. Just answered questions. When the prosecutor asked what I lost, I told the truth. I lost time, I said. I lost dignity. But I didn't lose myself. That seemed to matter. The audio recordings sealed it. The transcripts from the flash drive. The documents Linda had gathered. Madison's voice saying things no one could explain away. Her planning, her cold phrasing, her contempt. The jury barely needed a day. She was convicted on 4 counts. Deborah on 5. Sentencing is next spring. The numbers won't erase what happened, but they set a boundary. A line. Andrew wrote a letter to the court. In it, he admitted his role. Explained what fear does. How slowly it sneaks in. How shame blinds good people. He didn't excuse himself. That mattered too. I framed that letter. It sits on my shelf in the new house. Not because I need reminders, but because it's proof that people can come back. Even from far off. The house I bought is small. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. A narrow kitchen with a window over the sink that faces the mountains. There's a workbench in the garage, and I've started fixing up old radios. Not for sale. Just for the feel of it. Tools in my hands again. Solving things I can see. Last week, my granddaughter sat at the table doing homework. She likes the way the pencils sound on the wood. Says my house smells like old leaves and coffee. I told her that's exactly what it is. We made popcorn after. She asked if I knew how to build treehouses. I said maybe. She smiled. Dad says you used to build everything. I nodded. I still do. She didn't look away. You built us back. That was all she said. Went back to her worksheet after that. But the words hung in the room like warm light. I'm not after revenge. Never was. What I wanted was the truth. To stand upright again. To be seen clearly, even if only by one person. The pie at that dinner, it wasn't a prank. It wasn't comedy. It was the start of a pattern breaking. A mask slipping. They thought I was weak. They thought age meant silence. They forgot what people like me are made of. Not just stubbornness, but structure.